Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. As you can no doubt tell by the title of this video, today we're talking about Sprint, one of the most controversial mechanics ever added to the Halo franchise. Why am I talking about this all of a sudden? Well, ex-Bungie developers have brought up the debate. Now I am not stupid enough to even try to convince someone one way or the other that a certain way is better. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to talk about both Sprint, not Sprint, the trade-offs, the good and the bad. I'm going to give you guys all of the information you could possibly want to know on the topic, and then you can leave me a comment. In all my time as a YouTuber, I've always given you guys the information, but I've never told you what opinion you should have. I am also going to tie in Sprint to the new Campaign Evolved remake. The reason why I'm doing that is I found a 5-minute video from an X343 developer. He got access, he did a 5-minute speedrun, and he said something very interesting in it that I want to talk about. I feel like I am uniquely suited to talk about this topic as I've played probably more Halo, both campaign and multiplayer, than anyone in the world. Like, I shit you not, I have played 7,500, that is 7,500 hours of Halo Infinite, and even the Master Chief Collection, I've played 6,500. Of course, if you want to go back even further, I am max rank on Halo 3, I'm a general, I am max rank on Halo Reach, I am max rank on Halo 4, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo the Master Chief Collection, and even Halo Infinite. If there is one man in the world who has played enough Halo to give a nuanced, balanced take on the Sprint debate, I am the man. To be truthfully honest, I wasn't even going to do this video, but then I saw what the Bungie developer said, and I thought it was quite a balanced take. So balanced, in fact, that it's actually incentivized me to make this video. The Sprint debate as a whole really sums up just how divided the Halo community is. You had from 2001 all the way to 2009, there was no Sprint in the game. Then modern mechanics came into the game, Bungie added Halo Reach, and we've had Sprint ever since. Every iteration of Sprint has been different. So for Halo Reach, Sprint had no penalty. If you got shot, you could just run away. Absolutely hated it. Then you had Halo 4, and 343 Industries actually made it so if you're getting shot, you can't run as fast. A better change. Halo 5 then built on this again, and your shields will not come back if you are sprinting. Finally, 343's last game, Halo Infinite, which I think is the best implementation of Sprint. It is not all that much faster than the base walking speed, which is great, but it opens up so many different gameplay opportunities. To me, Halo Infinite was finally the sequel to Halo 3 that I was waiting to see, at least in terms of gameplay. Nevertheless, today we are talking about Sprint. Let's get into the video. Let's start with what the Bungie developer, Jamie Grisimer, said on Twitter. So Jamie said, "Right, I'm going to settle this question once and for all in a definitive thread on the topic." Jamie worked on the original Bungie game, so he has a unique perspective. Should Halo have Sprint? That's an absurd question. Should implies a moral imperative. Game mechanics have no inherent moral value. This question has no legitimate answer, and any attempt at answering it will result in a phone booth full of badges. That is basically Halo in a nutshell on Twitter. The exact same debate, argued a million times. Everyone has their preference, and no real outcome is ever going to get made. Jamie goes on to say, "Fine, game mechanics are not good or evil, they can only be evaluated by their utility. Does Sprint make Halo a better game? This is a naive question. No mechanic makes a game unequivocally better because games are systems, and changing a system is always a trade-off between positive and negative consequences. No experienced game designer would ever ask that question." So first of all, I'm going to talk about the phone booth full of badges, that euphemism, and it's a really good one because people are always arguing. Some people are like, well, my gun is always at the ready, so no Sprint is better. The Evolved fan base that has been around for 15 years now says, no, I like Sprint as it allows me to slide and the trade-offs are definitely worth it. Lets me zip around the map and I quite like Sprint. Then you have the third audience that says, well, if they're going for a modern audience, it needs to have Sprint. What my opinion is, and yes, I'll talk about multiplayer in a second, I'm going to talk about the Halo Campaign Evolved remake, specifically what Pro Ace Joker said in his video. He said, and I quote, "These maps were made with not Sprint in mind. The thing with that is Sprint is turned on by default. My big gripe is I want them to commit one way or the other. If you are making the maps with Sprint in mind, you use Sprint. If you are making the maps with not Sprint in mind, you don't use Sprint." I don't think that's so much to ask. Halo Infinite, they wanted to have Sprint, they committed to it, they made all the maps with sprinting in mind. It worked out very, very well. Halo 3 doesn't have Sprint, you have all these awesome skill jumps, again, fantastic game. So then Jamie Geismer went on to say, why not make sprinting an option in Halo? He said if you make a game mechanic optional, like optionally adding sprint into the campaign evolved remake, you have abandoned your post, thrown up your hands, and admitted you have no vision and that someone else should design the game. In this case, everyone else should design the game. Jamie goes on to say the definitive answer to this question of whether Halo should have sprint or not, he is talking about campaign here, so keep this in mind. He talks about multiplayer later on, and every game design question is only if you can build the mechanic such that the trade-off is a net positive. So basically, you make the game better with what you add, you don't make it worse. I really wish Bungie had that mindset for Halo Reach, as I don't like Bloom, I don't like Armor Lock, maybe because it was Bungie's last game, they were testing things for Destiny, but they really changed it up from Halo 3. So Jamie goes on to say, so let's look at the trade-offs and do some analysis. So he goes through the positives and the negatives of having sprint in a campaign-only title. First of all, he says, sprint allows players to get where they want to go in less time. This is why they want it. They are impatient, and for some reason the game is not holding their attention at the normal speed, usually because they are backtracking or they've played before, or they can see there is nothing interesting between them and their destination. Maybe the environments are too large or they lost their vehicle. And this raises an important point. To the people who do enjoy sprinting in their games, what about it do you like so much? And you guys can answer this in the comments for me. What do you guys love so much that it becomes such a sticking point? And the same is opposite for those who don't like sprint. Why is sprint so bad? I'm curious as to what you have to say. Jamie goes on to say, sprinting lets players skip combat and trivialize enemy encounters. Okay, this issue is too big to ignore. Before adding sprint, we have to address it. Is there a way we can ameliorate this negative trade-off? Ameliorate just means improve upon or make better. Maybe sprinting drains your shields, or it makes so much noise that all the enemies know where you are. Or getting shot while sprinting does triple damage, or prevents you from firing your weapon for some period. It's funny because Halo Reach's implementation of sprint, if you get shot at, you can still go full speed, which lets you run away from so many encounters. As Jamie is going through the list, he says sprinting breaks mission pacing and the sense of exploring a mysterious environment. If all your missions are locked down already, this is probably a fatal issue. The downstream effects would be catastrophic, but if you are early enough in development, you can probably compensate. You are going to have to make other compromises like walk and talk scenes or locked doors or light bridges or something. Ironically, Halo Infinite's campaign has a lot of this, kind of to slow the pacing down because the grapple hook makes it so fast. I always felt like the grapple hook should have been charges, not indefinite. A cool mechanic to have, but it means you go way too fast through the overall campaign. I didn't even bother to use sprint half the time because the grapple was so fast. Again, he talks about trivializing encounters. Halo Infinite fell into this hole. Next up, Jamie says, sprinting makes vehicles less useful and important. Again, Halo Infinite had this issue with the grapple hook, so he's raising some pretty good points here. I have seen playtests where players complete an entire vehicle mission on foot because sprint makes it less obvious they are doing the wrong thing. But the firepower, team capacity, and other benefits should keep them useful. And he raises an interesting point, at least for a campaign-only game, that if the base movement speed is a bit lower, it's a large open space, and there are vehicles, you'd be surprised the amount of people, if they have sprint, they will actually just try run through it without the vehicle. There are all these little things that people don't consider when it comes to game development, and nor should they because they're not game developers, so it's very interesting to get a Bungie developer's opinion on the issue. In conclusion, Jamie says, if you have the time and resources to properly minimize the negative consequences and account for tuning issues, especially how it breaks combat and pacing, adding sprint is probably a net positive trade-off. And Jamie is right, 100% correct. If it's a campaign-only game, it is designed with sprint in mind, then of course you have sprint. But it means all the encounters, how the game flows, the missions, the levels, everything has to be factored around that. Jamie himself pointed out in the early build of Campaign Evolved, because there was sprint in the build, when you're actually going inside and you sprint straight down the corridor, the game didn't have enough time to segue into the different music cue. That means because the maps weren't designed for it, or that's what Pro Ace Joker said, because it didn't have the time to change audio cues, the overall atmosphere doesn't sync up as well as the original. Again, it's an early build of the game, so you can't be too critical at this point. The developers are looking for feedback, and it's important to talk about. Moving on to multiplayer, Jamie also had a couple thoughts. Jamie said sprinting in multiplayer has a whole slew of other negative consequences that are a lot harder to account for, which probably makes it a net negative in objective-based multiplayer. By objective, I still think he means Slayer, because even Slayer, your objective is to kill the enemy team. It's not like PvE where he's talking about firefight. The final thing Jamie said on the matter, and then I'll talk about my thoughts. He said, I think Sprint has too many negatives for multiplayer games without a lot of compensating factors. In general, you can just make your map smaller or your base speed higher. He doesn't believe that Sprint is all that necessary when you can tune those things. Again, if Halo Infinite has taught me anything, and I love Halo 3, Halo 2, Halo Combat Evolved, if the game is created around it and it's balanced. I didn't even think Sprint was balanced in Halo Reach or Halo 4, Halo 5 was closer, but Halo Infinite is the only game where I think it's actually been implemented well. Halo 5 wasn't too bad because the whole game was based around all of these different abilities. I hate Spartan Charge, but I think it really comes down to overall game design. And I know a lot of you guys, one way or the other, are going to comment on this video saying, no, Halo shouldn't have Sprint, or yes, Halo should have Sprint, it needs to evolve with the times. At the end of the day, the developers have the job. It is their job to make the game around certain mechanics. There's no Sprint, and I'd be very curious as to how a no Halo Sprint would be received in the current day. I truthfully don't think Microsoft would ever allow them to do that. There are so many different factors at play here, and often those executives, they get the final say. The worst thing you can do, and we've seen it time and time again, is plans change so much. You cannot ham-fist Sprint into a build if the maps are not designed around it. Whatever the initial vision is, it needs to be clear from the concept to the execution, and you need to commit to it. When I was reading through this whole thread, there was actually a comment I came across which I actually agreed with quite a lot. In response to Jamie, it said, this is the correct take. Whether Halo has Sprint or not is irrelevant. The game can be designed and paced around it, especially the campaign. When you give the option of one or the other, then you're trying to create two games, and it doesn't work like that. That is why when I always talk to you guys and I talk about there are so many other factors at play here, that when you combine them all together, that is what makes the core of a Halo game, and it dictates its successfulness. Sprint or not is not the biggest deal in the world. Committing to a vision and having a clear idea of what the game is going to be is the massive problem. To that, I say Halo had a really strong identity before Halo Reach, and then until Halo Infinite, it was kind of finding its feet again. Where the developers have got in trouble in the past is they don't have a clear vision as to where they want Halo to go. They need to commit one way or the other, move the franchise forward. I appreciate that there is a toggle for Sprint, don't get me wrong. These are just things I noticed from all the gameplay demo stuff I've seen. And with that, that is Sprint versus no Sprint in Halo. I know you guys are gonna have a lot to say about it in the comments today. Some good, some bad. Try not to rip each other's heads off. That is the last thing I want to see. If you take anything from this video, just know that there are so many different factors at play when it comes to game development. Sprint v no Sprint is just a surface level issue. There are so many deeper things at play here that will affect the quality of a game, and that's beyond Halo as well. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Big thank you to Jamie for giving his thoughts on the matter. It's always very interesting to hear a developer's take on it. Back again actually in a couple days. I have a Halo 3 cut content video coming out that is going to be very cool, but for now, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.